Hey, sports parents. If we haven't met, my name is Jonathan Corona, and I'm the host of the show. Today, we're talking with Kate Ziegler. Kate is a two-time Olympian, a four-time world champion, and a former world record holder in swimming. Today, she's a coach and mentor to female athletes, helping them build strong, steady identities beyond their sport. Through her business, Kate Ziegler Coaching, she equips girls with the emotional tools she wishes she had so they can thrive in sport and in life. In our conversation, we talk about separating performance from identity, what it looks like to let our kids lead the journey, but still setting up healthy guardrails for them, and the realities of high-level training at young ages. I try not to oversell these conversations, but this was one where I was enjoying the conversation so much that I lost track of time and had to end it way sooner than I wanted it to, and I think you'll enjoy it just as much as I did. If you want to know more about Kate's business, those links are down in the show notes below. If you like the show today, we're going to ask that you rate us and review us wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, writing up a small review would be a huge help. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Most of all, if this episode helps you in any way, the best thing you can do is share it with a friend. With all that out of the way, here's my conversation with Kate Ziegler. We're here with Kate Ziegler. Kate, go ahead and say hey to everybody.
Hi there.
Thanks for being here with us. I want to start where we start every single week. I know from talking to you before we got started that your kids are a little younger, but before we get into the accomplished athlete and the coach, we want to meet mom. So can you tell us a little bit about your kids and what it's like being mom to them?
Yeah, I am mom to a 3-year-old Franklin and a 1-year-old Graham. And it is everything that you would think it would be to be mom to two little boys. It is chaos. It was 4:30 this morning getting woken up and wanting to ride our scooter through the bedroom. It is humbling. It reminds me to really find joy in the smallest of moments. It reminds me to look at the world through curiosity and awe. It reminds me to constantly come back to some of the mindset tools I've learned as an athlete, like stay calm and grounded. It is the most chaotic, sweetest, most joyful, wonderful experience, and also sleep deprived.
You were telling me before we started that your son can get through any lock. And ours are 8 and 10 now. And by the time this comes out, we'll be 9 and 10 actually. And so I remember 2 kids 16 months apart and would not recommend it. Not the path I would have chosen. It's what we ended up with, but that's because we read the calendar wrong and made a very specific mistake on a specific day that led to a specific kid who is upstairs right now.
Yeah, Franklin loves, we have tried every lock and he'll show me. He's like very proud of it. He's like, hey mommy, look, this is how I do it. We've tried Vaseline on the doorknob and he went into his drawer, got a cloth and just wiped it off. I'm like, I love the ingenuity. I love that you're solution oriented. Like I'm going to celebrate all these things and also just please sleep past 5 a.m.
Let me sleep, dude. Like, you can be smart later. You can.
I know.
Just
you've got the rest of your life. Yeah. And his brother, on the other hand, though, he is like, he'll sleep till 9, 8. Like he'll lay in his crib 9, 10, whenever you want to get me, no problem. So
I'm just playing with what's in my crib, and I'm good. Yeah.
I know.
All right. Well, before you were mom, you lived the dream that so many families chase. You were a national champion. You were an Olympian. You set records. Like, you've done all the things we think about when we dream about our kids being athletes. But you've also said there were days that all of that felt hollow. So what do you wish more parents understood about what that level of success actually costs?
Yeah. Yeah, Jonathan, I love the word you use, which is costs. I think the first thing that I would say about success is we are so quick to celebrate the medal moment. Like we look on TV and we're like, wow, this is amazing. I want to stand up there with my hand on my heart, American flag raising and the gold medal. Like that is awesome. And I'll tell you, parents, that is awesome. But the first thing is that it's fleeting. You have this moment and it's like, wow, I've achieved everything. And then what? And I think that's one of the things, first and that we miss is we think so often that if we achieve something that we'll feel good enough, we'll feel loved, we'll feel fulfilled. So first thing is that is actually really not true. If you can separate your identity from that, you can feel proud of that and also who you are. You can feel proud of yourself even when you don't achieve it and who you are, right? But I think that's really hard for most of us when we're chasing that level of success, those get intertwined. So the first thing is I would just tell them, yeah, that's an awesome dream. And that is really fun. And I have so much pride for what I've accomplished. And also I realized that there was a real trap in it. And so just be careful about that. The second thing I would say is that understand, as you said, the cost of it. Like when we celebrate that, that's really cool. But what you don't see behind the scenes is every missed vacation, every missed school dance, every early morning, every tear that was cried at the pain and the loss and the disappointment and the doubts of who you are and is this worth it? Like all of that goes into that. That's a part of it. Those are the sacrifices that come along with it. And those aren't inherently bad, but they need to be recognized. Like, do you want to actually go down that path? And I think for my parents, they didn't know. I had no dreams of going Olympics. It was just sort of like I hopped on that train, left the station, and was just going, right? So they didn't know that all that was going to come with that. But I think had we had hindsight and known, maybe some things would have been done a little differently. At least we would have gone in with eyes open. So that's the second thing I would say is just understand that to the extent that you can. And then third thing I would say about success is, I think especially in youth sports, it's really easy to get caught up in the medals and the records and the state championships and the scholarships and like none of that is bad. I would love my boys to get scholarships, right? Like college is expensive, cool. But what we have to understand is that also if you don't want to get on that path, that's okay too. But whichever path you want to go on, let's try to be a little intentional about it. Like, let's try to step back and say, hey, what does success mean for us as a family unit? What does it mean for us individually? What does it mean for our kids? And if we can define that and ideally have it linked to something that's within our control rather than something just external like a medal or record or a championship, if we can define success as something that's within our control, then we build kids who feel a little bit more confident because they've got some control over where they're pursuing. We've got family units who are working together towards a shared vision rather than just sort of hopping into this sport culture that's like so busy and so results oriented sometimes that it kind of captures us. And then it also allows us to be driven by shared values. And by the end of the day, like what I've learned about success is really, and this sounds so cliche, and you've heard this, everyone says it, but it's like sport really should help build who you are, not just what you achieve. And so if we can define success early on by genuinely who do we want to become at the end of this journey, then we can kind of reverse engineer to help encourage and, put bumpers around keeping our kids and ourselves, for that matter, in alignment with that.
I want to push into that a little bit because you've talked before about tying your self-worth to the stopwatch. So, like in your experience, what age did you start feeling that kind of shift? And is there a place you can trace that back to where you started realizing like, oh my gosh, I am how fast I swim? And you started to have that kind of connection.
Yeah. As a kid, I was always kind of perfectionistic, type A, willing to work really hard, wanting to please people. So I sort of had that personality early on that was in some ways predisposing me to seek worth and value.
The OCD you need to have to make to the levels that you got to.
I mean, it's true, right? Like there's a reason why certain people go down this path, but there's also a reason why certain people go down this path, right? So I think at an early age, I mean, I can remember being 12 years old and looking to my coach, like my coach would validate me, like, hey, that was incredible. Hey, you're swimming so fast. That's awesome. And I'd be like, wow, that feels good, right? Like, okay, I want more of that. And again, like compliments, not a bad thing, but we internalize them as young kids. And then I'm like, oh, okay, so I seem to get more attention when I win. I like that. I'm going to keep trying to win. And so it was subtle at first, but in answer to your question, the specific moments, it really started to shift when I started on the world scene. At 16, I won world championships in the 800 and 1500. I start getting a lot more notoriety. People know my name. People are starting to ask for autographs. I'm 16 years old. I'm like, what? Like, what is this? Like, I'm just trying to pass my, geometry test over here.
Yeah, in geometry, you're just Kate. But in the pool,
right?
you're Kate.
Right. But then I come back to high school and there's a sign outside that's like, congratulations, Kate, on your world championship. So now in the pool, I'm Kate, but that's also starting to become who I am everywhere, right? So the success continues at 17. I'm now a repeat double world champion. At 18, I broke the longest standing world record in the 1500 meter freestyle. And this is the year going into the Olympics. And so now it's not just, wow, you're Kate, successful swimmer, but now you're Kate who we're resting our gold medal hopes on. And I didn't have the tools, the words, the mindset, the ability to open up and to share, like, this feels like too much. Because remember, that same type of person who does really well also is the type of person who can compartmentalize, can kind of shove it all down and just say, okay, I'm tough. I'm not going to be dramatic. I'm not going to complain. I'll just figure this out. And I'll just continue doing what's always worked for me, which is kind of be quiet and just train hard and push through, because that's what results in medals.
And for people who, I just want to share this context, like the timeline you're talking about, there was a guy named Michael Phelps swimming at the exact same time. So like the world's eyes were on American swimming when you were coming through it. It's not like you went in some off year where no one cared. Like the world's eyes were on American swimming, those two Olympics you went to.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm in Speedo photo shoots with Michael Phelps. I'm doing interviews with these people. This is swimming. I think it's really highlighted every 4 years, but it is kind of the lead event at the Olympics. And so spotlight is on. 2008 is when Michael wins his 8 gold medals. There's just so much attention. And at the time I would look, honestly, this is significant, because I would look at some athletes and think, gosh, they don't seem fazed by this. And so not only was I internalizing pressure, or what I perceived to be pressure from other people saying like, hey, when are you going to win gold medal? When are you going to break the next world record? But what I also was doing was heaping on pressure on myself, saying, well, they all have it all together. What's wrong with me? Like, there must be something broken, which meant all the more pressure to fix myself and to just push through. When really I look back on it in hindsight and I think, goodness, if I had the courage to say, hey, I'm really struggling right now. Can someone help me? I don't know how to handle this pressure, but I didn't even have the language for that, and my parents were great. They tried to say things like, my mom would always say, she's like, if this is ever not fun, you just let me know. But the problem is, like, again, the train had left the station. And I wasn't going to, months out of the Olympics, be like, this is not fun. So,
But also, when you talk about putting your identity in that success, like, there is always someone better. And, like, you're in the Olympics. You are the top of your sport. And so just being there is a moment that, looking back, you're insanely proud of. But in the moment, you're like, Well, what if I wish I could just get one medal? I wish I could just get one gold medal. Oh, that guy got 8 freaking gold medals. Like, there's always someone that you're comparing yourself to when your identity is tied to your performance. And when that happens, nothing will ever be good enough because someone has done something better.
And there's always someone coming up behind you trying to snatch that too, you know? So it's like I break a world record. Well, someone people might have heard of, Katie Ledecky, came along 7 years later and she broke my world
She's
record,
okay.
right? But
She's
there
all
was
right.
a Katie, right? I'm like, well, if someone's going to break it, that's okay. But, you know, you're holding on to this world record. Like, oh, I'm the world record holder. But there's someone coming, right? So if we try to put that identity in anything that is fragile as a record or a medal, there, to your point, there's always someone better or there's always someone coming to take it, right?
You mentioned your parents tried to do everything right, but they left they left the station on the same train you did, not having packed their bags or done any preparation. So like, I want you to celebrate your parents, but also, let's also just talk about the realities of it. What do you think your parents did well on the journey? And looking back, what did they just not have the tools to be able, that they could have done better, but didn't know how because no one had ever taught them?
Yeah. Yeah. My parents did do many things well, and they also messed up. Like, I'm aware every parent is like that, right? No one's perfect. So things my parents did really well. I was very shy. I was a very anxious kid. I had social anxiety. I didn't want to try new things. And so looking back on it, I didn't even want to try the swim team. And my parents would encourage me in ways that were, they pushed me outside my comfort zone, but were always there too, right? And so they really challenged me, hey, let's try this. Let's just give this a shot, the swim team. When I was going to quit swimming when I had to go from 50s to hundreds, like I didn't know if I could make it that far. And so they were like, well, let's just give it a try. You know, so they challenged me to think a little bit bigger and to get outside of that comfort zone, which was helpful. They always tried to make sure that swimming was my thing. They would let me take the lead to a great extent. Hey, is this fun for you? Do you want to continue doing this? Do you want to move up to this group? Which was great, but also in hindsight, they gave me the lead at 10 years old, at 12 years old. And to an extent, I just kind of looked around and was like, well, this is what everyone else is doing. Okay. I didn't know that. I didn't have that internal barometer yet really set. So that was a strength, but also I think sometimes I could have used maybe a little bit more guidance. And the third thing that they did really well was my dad drove me to every practice, 4 a.m. without complaint. They didn't badmouth my coach. They didn't say, this is too much. They said, hey, do you want to go? Okay, we're going to be in there with you. Mom had every meal, my blue snack bag, my blue lunchbox, had every meat snack ready to go. They were always trying to just do whatever it was that I needed to try to be my best. And then the undercurrent of that was, we want you to be your best. So we want you to be a good swimmer, but we want you to be a great person. So those were really the underpinnings of everything they would say. The problem, though, was I was an anxious kid who would say things like, I feel really scared. And they would go straight into what we'd love to do as parents, which is fix everything. So it'd be like, oh, no, you're fine. No, there's nothing to be afraid of. Oh, I was afraid would the kids on the team like me? Oh, you're so likable. Don't worry about that. And then it would just kind of shut down. Or I'd be like, hey, I'm really nervous about Junior Olympics, going in swimming at 12 years old. And they'd be like, there's nothing to be nervous about. You're fine. Don't worry. This isn't a big deal. It really, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't matter. Problem was that it really did matter to me in that moment. And so what we were doing was we were just trying to fix and move past the emotion. But swimming and life brings anger, nerves, disappointment, frustration, confusion, lack of confidence. And so they didn't create a space where I could feel that. It was just like, oh, feeling, labeled, done. Let's go back to being happy. Let's go back to having fun. Like, let's smile.
This
And
awkward
this
smile
is
right here is
great.
because I do what
Right?
your parents do so way too often, and I'm yeah, I'm
We
like
do it all the time.
I try to be cognizant of it, but also like as parents, letting kids sit in those emotions is really freaking hard, and so we naturally
It's
default to
so hard.
making it as easy as possible on us. And so the things you're saying about your parents, I'm just awkwardly like, I don't like this.
But,
Kate, stop it.
yeah. And it's so true. And that's the thing. It's like, I don't think my parents knew. Actually, I know they did not know how to sit with me in that. And so I don't blame them, but I do look back on it and think they didn't know. So how in
Right.
the world could they teach me? So I've even had a conversation with my mom before saying, like, okay, something that might have helped is you need to learn your emotional regulation and how to sit with your hard emotions in order to sit with me. Right. And um and yeah, I think that's so normal, but I think simple things that parents can do are things like, hey, what do you need right now? Like, just tell me. Or hey, validating, like, or mirroring back, like, hey, I see you're really upset. Do you want to talk? Or I can just sit here and we can just sit in silence. You're not alone. I'm here with you. Or hey, I feel really nervous. Like, can you tell me what it is you feel nervous about? And then just hearing that, not trying to tell them why not, even giving them the skill of saying, hey, so you feel nervous because you're afraid you're going to get last. Well, what would happen if you got last? Like, just opening up curiosity and helping them, because I think the more, as I look back on it, like, I wish someone had just said, hey, let's just talk dialogue about this so that what you're feeling doesn't feel so bad. Like, we're quick to label that as bad, but instead just feels like, hey, that's a human emotion, totally normal. In fact, very valid. You should be probably nervous going to the Olympics. All right, let's
If
like
you weren't nervous,
let's
I'd be
do
a
a little
little
dance
worried
around
about you.
this and see if we can, right? Like, there's something wrong. And yet there felt like it felt like everything was wrong. Like I was messed up because I was nervous.
It's such a hard piece because as I hear you talk about it, I was nowhere near the levels you were. Like I didn't even play varsity sports in high school, but I think back to that same time period, like the '90s, early 2000s. Like our parents didn't know what we know now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so easy to look back and be like, oh, they were so terrible. Well, they were doing the best they could with the information they had at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, was there things or were there things looking back that they could have done better? Absolutely. But our kids are going to look at us, even with the information we have now, and like, oh, there's a couple things they could have done better
Mm-hmm.
raising us. And we're going to have the same humility we're asking our parents to have and be like, yep, you know what? I didn't know that at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Like, I'm going to try to learn better. And what I have been so the reason I have this platform and the reason I started it is because I saw a dad on the sidelines of a soccer game yell at his 8-year-old daughter to the point that she started crying and she leaned into mom. And even while she was crying, leaned into mom, dad was still yelling.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at that dad and I knew his background just for the way he looked. I could size him up immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, no one has ever taught him why he's feeling what he's feeling now on the sidelines to the point that he feels he needs to yell at his 8-year-old daughter. And I felt sympathy for the girl, but I felt empathy for that dad because I could have pictured myself in that same spot had I not had the training and the classes and the research that I've personally done.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want people to realize that doing this in a healthy way, the way that you're talking about, is not the natural way.
No.
It's not the way we are wired by default. And so to be the type of parent you're talking about, it takes work and it's hard and we have to be really intentional. And the truth is we're often so dang worn out from practices and games and all that work stuff and life stuff that by the time we get to the field, staying emotionally aware is the hardest thing in the world to do because we simply don't have the energy to put into it.
Mm-hmm. And to your point, we also it's not our natural state. So it does take time to listen to great resources like your platform to say, hey, what can I learn? Well, when I'm rushing to get meals together, to pick the kid up from school, to rush to baseball practice, and then go pick up my other kid at soccer practice. And then, we also, sometimes it's just like, I don't have time to learn. I don't have the energy to absorb and then to put it into practice. And then I think we can also feel overloaded from all the information out there too, right? So I think for parents who are listening, you are not failing. Sure, there's room for improvement, but even if you're listening to this right now, you are trying. And so I celebrate that about you. And I think one thing my parents did well is they also, now years later, were willing to say, hey, we made this mistake. Hey, I did learn this. I'm sorry. I was doing the best I can. And I think in those mistakes and in that growth, when we can communicate that to our kid and say, hey, you know what? I think I lost my cool back there. And I really wish I hadn't. And so I want to explain to you, here's what happened. And that's not about you. That was on mommy. That was on me. Right. I think even modeling that demonstrates grace. It demonstrates that we make mistakes and we learn conflict resolution. Like there's a lot that can be learned too from that. And so we make mistakes, but when we own them, that helps the process as well.
One of my go-tos that has worked in our family, and my wife does it now too. It's like, hey, guys, give me a minute. Mm-hmm. Like I'm a little overstimulated right now. There's a lot going on. Like, can you give me 2 minutes, 5 minutes to just sit here and clear my brain out, and then we can talk about this or we can look at it. And just by telling them that, like, hey, I'm a little overloaded right now. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't want to bite your head off. I'm not trying to be rude. It's just, I need a minute.
Yeah.
And I take that minute. Then I walk back. It's like, hey, sorry. Like, sorry, my tone was off there. I apologize for that. What were you saying and how can I help? Mm-hmm. Well, then it's like it never happened.
Right.
And they just go straight into whatever they need because they really, like, even though my kids are at this point 9 and 10, like, they get it. It's become such a normal thing in our house that, like, hey, sometimes you just need a break for a minute. Mm-hmm. And like, we own that, we label it, and then we apologize for the rude thing that we did because even though we didn't mean to, we were still rude. My tone was still off. Like, kiddo, I'm not mad at you. I had a lot going on in my brain and I lost myself for a second. Sorry about that. What do you need from me? It's okay, Daddy. And here's the 30-minute rant about what they need from me.
Right. And I love that because you are teaching emotional regulation too. You're modeling, hey, when I feel overstimulated, when I'm overwhelmed, I need to take a moment back. And then I come back. Like I have started teaching Franklin, our 3-year-old, we do the hand breath. So we hold hands, we put hands up to each other, and he traces my hand. He inhales, exhales, inhale, exhales, inhale, exhales. And we practice just in the smallest of ways. Hey, when we're feeling overwhelmed, we just take a breath. What does that look like? It's kind of fun for a kid to go up and down. And again, I start my morning with a breathing. I set my intention. I'm going to be positive and patient and present. That's my goal for today. Do I miss my goal? Fairly frequently. Yes. Right. But at least I'm setting that intention and then I'm trying, like to what you said. I love that. Step back, come back. I think that's excellent. I'm going to take that one.
You can have it. It's one of the few that I've stumbled on that actually work. I want to get into some specific training questions for you in just a minute, but we're going to share a couple resources with the listeners, and then we'll be back with Kate on the other side to talk about how we can be present in this journey a little bit more.
Have you ever showed up at the wrong field at the right time? Hey, my name's Zoe, and I've got 3 athletes on club and travel teams, and that's happened to me one too many times. So 2 years ago, I created a new app called Orgo, exclusively for sports parents. It imports schedules from all the different team apps, as well as your personal calendar to keep the entire family, including your kids, on the same page. Go to orgohq.com, download directly from the App Store or Google Play, and make Orgo part of your winning routine. Get the right people to the right places on time.
Hey, it's Jonathan. If you haven't signed up for the Weekend Playbook yet, this is your reminder to do that. It is a short, no-fluff email that lands every Friday with practical tips you can actually use before, during, and after your kid's game. And when you sign up, we'll also send you 4 of the top resources from Positive Coaching Alliance. They're one of the leading organizations in this country equipping parents and coaches in youth sports. The link's down in the show notes, so go check that out.
So I want to talk swimming specific for you for just a second, because swimming is one of those sports that is notorious for early morning practices, for long hours. You've got in the water, you've got out of the water. Like, kids are training like pros by the time they're in middle school. And the same can be said for sports like gymnastics or dance. And I have always said, like, one of my bents is that, like, going too intense too early is a recipe for burnout, and specializing too early isn't good. And the pushback is always, I get it, but in swimming, you can't do that. In gymnastics, you can't do that. Looking back, how do you feel about the structure and intensity of, we'll talk just swimming in your case, because that's your background. Like, do you think the level of training at young ages is healthy, or are we not doing it the best we could be?
You know, I think that there is, as in any argument, there is validity to both sides. As I look back, I think I didn't really start year-round swimming until I was about 10, and that was fairly casual. And when I was 12, I really got serious about it. At 12 years old, I was probably doing 5 to 7 practices. By 13, I'm starting to do doubles, 4 a.m. practices, and in the afternoons after school. As I look back on that, was it too much? Possibly. The quantity was too much, especially when we talk about things like kids' brains development. They need a lot of sleep. Getting up at 3:30 in the morning when you've got all the other requirements of your day. I know this sounds like a cop-out, but I'm not quite sure. I don't know, because at the time it was very self-driven. I look back on it, and like, my parents would say, hey, do you want to sleep in this morning? I'm like, no, I want to go. Like, this is fun. I'm enjoying it. I'm driven. But where I would say I definitely think there was a problem was that I didn't allow myself any breaks. My parents were driving me to practice over Christmas break when we would go visit my grandparents, and we would be waking up at 5 a.m. to go find a pool to train at, to then come back and then visit with family for a little bit and then go back to another practice. I think that was a problem. I didn't take breaks at the end of summer. It was like, I'm so afraid to get out of shape. And there was a lot of pressure from coaching also in that regard. And so that was a real problem. That led to burnout. That led to overtraining. It led to all sorts of mental, physical, emotional deterioration and exhaustion. So in answer to your question, I think you can always add training. I think that's really important, because in swimming, in gymnastics, yes, we tend to hit our peak a little bit earlier than other sports, so there is a bit more pressure, but I think that starting slow and adding is okay, because it's really hard to start with a lot at, say, age 8, 9, and then back off. It's a lot harder to back off. So that'd be the first thing. The second thing I would say is to really protect the joy and the fun and the exploration and fun of sport and of childhood. Protect that, because even when you're training really hard, you can still find ways in which to really intentionally celebrate who your child is, not your athlete, who your child is outside of their sport. I think part of the problem with specialization is because, and why it leads to burnout, is because when we specialize really early, our identity gets formed into our sport very early, increased pressure to perform. And so what would it look like to maybe specialize, to those people who feel like me, let's go all in early on and have a lot of success? Cool. What would it look like to protect that person, not the performer, that person early on, through celebrating who they are, through having other hobbies, through giving them just downtime to just be a kid. Like we were talking before we got on, like play the roadblocks, have the family movie night, what does all that look like? And then the other thing I think is creating boundaries around sport talk. We have the tendency to, hop in the car. How was practice? Tell me about it. Like, how are you feeling about your meet coming up? How do you feel? Like, everything just becomes kind of sport focused when we specialize earlier, it feels like at times. And so making sure that sport has its place balanced with everything else.
One of the things you said in there that I resonate with, because people ask me about this so much, is you said that you were the one driven and you were driving the bus in terms of you wanted to go after it. And I always say this journey should be kid driven. Like, our job as parents is to facilitate our kids' passions. There's a but to that though. Mm-hmm. My kids would choose to eat ice cream for dinner every single night if they were allowed to drive the bus on what they got to eat. But as the parent, I have to know that ice cream every night isn't healthy. Ice cream for dinner some nights, like we did that on vacation this summer. Like one night we did ice cream for dinner, and then if they wanted something afterwards, but dinner that night was ice cream. And for my kids, they absolutely loved it. But I also knew that they couldn't do that every night. And so you were a driven kid who wanted it, but if you could be an outside looker on for that process to coach your parents, were there signs that even though you wanted it, they probably should have pulled back and created some, not roadblocks to your progress, but maybe some guardrails along the journey so that you wouldn't go around that curve quite so fast?
Oh, yeah. Yes, definitely. I think, the big thing that I look back on, and it would have been really hard to be in my parents' shoes, because I looked like the kid who was having fun, who was having all this success, who was very intrinsically motivated. I looked like that kid. And if my parents had said, no, you're not, you actually need to take 3 weeks off from the end of summer season to the start of fall, I would have been mad. And so again, I would have pushed back. I would have gotten pouty. I would have told them, like, coach is going to be mad at me. I'm going to fall behind. Like, there would have been a lot of emotions, and they would have had to hold space for those emotions and hold firm to the boundary. And that is really, really hard in parenting, right? And you're doing this dance. But I think that one thing that I would have encouraged them to do now, looking back in hindsight, is zoom out and fast forward 10 years from now when she's, 20 years old. What will help her be her healthiest 20-year-old or even zoom out 5 years from now? She's 12 years old and now she's in high school getting ready to graduate. Do you have hopes of going to college and swimming in college? Okay, this break that you take now will help in the long term to make sure that she's a little bit more balanced. She's a little bit healthier. Her body responds better. I think having those hard conversations, and then that comes back to, I think, that first question of what do you wish you knew about success is, what does success really mean? Is it about longevity? Is it about like world championships at 16? Great. But burnt out at 20, not a good thing, right? If that was the goal, if our goal was longevity.
And I think this tool of being able to zoom out and say, I know you want this right now, but for your long-term health, it's not good. And being comfortable disappointing your kids in that way, that is a tool that not just for sports, but like I was telling you before we started recording, my daughter's asked for CapCut on her iPad. She's 10. She just wants to make silly little movies or whatever. And I've had to tell her, I had to take the time to explain to her and say, Liv, I know you don't understand this right now, but here are the reasons why I'm saying no to you having that. X, Y, Z, here's what I know. I understand you might not understand that. And you might be mad at me. You can be as mad as you need to be at me with this, but this is the reason why. And what I have learned, again, I'm not an expert. I'm just a dad of a 10-year-old. Through that process, she's mad at me, but there's some understanding there that I've at least taken the time to explain why. It's not just a because I said so. It's not just because I don't want you to have fun like your friends are having. It's here are the reasons. I have thought this through. I have given this consideration. This is what I have determined is best for you. You're allowed to feel whatever you need to feel towards me. I'm okay with you being mad at me. And she'll go stomp off or whatever. Like, I don't like when she does it. I don't like when my daughter's mad at me, but I have to be okay with it for her long-term health. So whether it is the 9-year-old who all he wants to do is play basketball all the time, and you've got to tell that 9-year-old, like, hey, dude, we've got to take some time off from playing. Maybe we can still shoot in the driveway, but we can't be playing tournaments and practicing all the time. And him being upset at that. Or it's the 12-year-old who wants to play baseball all the time, but you got to rest his arm because he's going to have shoulder surgery by the time he gets to high school if you don't. Like, explaining those things to the kids actually goes a long way. It doesn't take away their emotion, but it at least shows them you have given it the thought that it deserves instead of just saying no.
Yes, you're exactly right. And again, stepping back and saying, okay, what do I define as success? Why is this then the thing that's going to help that? And I think when you early on help create that vision of success and explain that and bring your kids in on it with you, and then you have some shared experience, some shared vision, and then it's just a tiny bit easier, still big emotions, but just a tiny bit easier to say, okay, we're going to do this hard thing, which is to not play right now. And I know that's hard. And also my hope is that this shared vision we created, that's what we're going to move towards. And so as a result, this is why. And I love how you say, really articulating it to them. That goes a long way. And then also checking, okay, what's my motivation? If I'm giving in to this, is it because I think it's best for them? Or is it because I don't want to go through this hard experience? Or because maybe I have goals for them that I want them to achieve. And I see Johnny over there doing, 6 practices a week, and maybe actually we should do that. Just checking that, I think, can be healthy and very humbling too at times.
Yeah. I'm going to give a short promo here just because what you're talking about. In the Weekend Playbook, which is my newsletter that I send out every Friday, in the ad that you heard a second ago, you heard that I say, like, we give out positive coaching alliances for top parenting resources. One of those resources that you can get is a checklist. It's a 100-point checklist that you fill out and say, like, you put values next to all these different things you want your kid to get out of the sport. You can then give a similar paper to your kid, let them rank it, and then you compare. That way, the shared vision of success that Kate's talking about, you can say, like, oh, my kid doesn't give a crap about a college scholarship. They just want to make friends and be active. Okay, so my priorities are off a little bit. Or the other side is they actually want to be really good, and I just want them to have fun. So maybe I need to come to their level a little bit and help them reach their level of success. So if you sign up for the Weekend Playbook, the link is down in the show notes wherever you're listening or watching. You're going to get that document in the email right after you sign up. So to help with that shared vision of success, go do that, because it's one of the most important things you can do. That was a longer promo than I meant for it to be, but I think it's like that shared vision of success that you're talking about, Kate, I think is one of the biggest things that we get wrong, because we have these hopes and dreams for our kids, which are absolutely normal. They have hopes and dreams for themselves. And if we don't actually talk about it, like, there's misalignment there. And it's a misalignment out of silence, where everyone was doing what they thought was best, but no one took the time to talk about what each other actually wants.
Right. I had an athlete, she's 16-year-old tennis player. I got an email from her mom and just said, hey, would love to set up some coaching calls. Here's a little bit of context. Get on the call with the athlete. And I'm like, tell me about your sport. Tell me about, all the questions. What's your vision of success? Those kinds of things. And she's like, I just really love playing with my friends. Like, it's just fun. Yeah, I just like it. I'm like, okay, cool. Great. Like, would you like to what would you like to get out of coaching? And tell me about that. I don't know. There's probably something I can do on my swing. I just love tennis though. So then follow up, and I'm talking to her parent afterward, and I was like, she is so easygoing. It's very refreshing how lighthearted she is about it. She's 16, come this far, and she just finds joy in playing. Not too many goals. And her mom wrote back and was like, oh, I've always thought that was the problem. And I said, really? Like, kind of tell me about that. She's like, I see these other girls and they're so motivated and they're so driven and aggressive and competitive. And I just feel like we need to light a fire in her. And I thought, maybe. Or also, she's just loving it. Like, she's found joy. She has confidence in herself. She's intrinsically motivated by the fun and joy she has. Like, what if that's enough? And what if that's her sport journey, But I think that's where that misalignments can happen, where we think we need to fix something because we see someone else doing something. So yes, I love your checklist. Definitely, people should check that out and build that vision of success. It's powerful.
I have a vivid memory of sitting in my daughter's bed last fall, and she had a really hard soccer season at 9 years old. The coach that she had was pushing really hard because she wanted to turn the girls into beasts. And Liv was like, I'm just tired of getting yelled at. And I remember she wanted to quit, and we're laying in her bed together. And I was like, Liv, I think you really like playing soccer. I do. It's like, but I don't think you care about how good you are. I don't. I think you just want to play soccer with your friends. Yeah, that's really all I want to do. And in fourth grade at 9 years old, I was like, that's totally so we went and found a team that she could play with some friends, and it was very low key. And the interesting thing about it was, I think they won one game all year, and she was playing with some girls who weren't as good. So she had to be better to pick up for her teammates. And by doing that, it kicked a little competitiveness into gear, and she started to see how good she could be. And she's still not super into it, but this fall she's wanting to be a little better, and she's actually looking forward to maybe playing in middle school. And she wanted to be a ball girl for the girls team for the middle school this year as a fifth grader. And so that she could be around but it was all because we didn't force that competitiveness. It was her journey. And I had to ask her, it's like, what do you want? I just want to play with soccer with my friends. Okay. We're going to support that. I'm going to support that. When I think the bug will get to her at some point. I think just knowing her personality, it's going to be a slow burn, but she'll get to the point where the competitiveness kicks in. But if it doesn't, if she just loves being active and being with her friends and competing in that way, that's I just want a healthy kid. I just want a kid who has good relationships, who enjoys being active and doesn't see activity as punishment and exercise as punishment. And if we get a competitor along the way, that's the gravy on the potatoes, but that's not the meat of it. And so, yeah, I just think parents in the culture we have today are told your kid has to be super elite competitive or they're less than. When in reality, just getting out there and competing takes so much dang bravery that just competing should be celebrated.
Yeah. Yeah. I watch Franklin try new skills, whether it's, shooting baskets at his little, kids wall mount, or it's learning we're hitting golf balls in the backyard or whatever it may be. And I watch him try something and be bad at it. And the thing that I always say to him is, hey, when we start something, let's level set our expectations. We should probably not be very good at it because we're learning something new. And I see the amount of energy it takes him to just keep trying, to hold himself together and be courageous enough to be bad at something. Just asking someone to do that is a big ask. And then you layer on, I'm going to now ask you to go try to do that in front of your friends, in front of your peers. I'm going to ask you to have the bravery to be the one who takes the foul shot when it's at the end of the game. And this is the make or break. I'm going to ask, these asks that we have of our kids, I think we don't realize if we put ourselves in those shoes, that'd be pretty darn hard at times. And so to your point, you say it perfectly. Like, we're asking a lot to just get out there and perform. And then when we layer on these pressures that they already in their inner dialogue oftentimes have, we're really missing the mark at times, I think.
I could keep going for a while, but I just looked down and saw how long we've been going. So we got to wrap it up. But I want to ask you the two questions we ask at the end of every week. First one, what have I not asked you today that you think parents need to hear the answer to?
I think the thing that they need to hear is we spend a lot of time thinking about how are we going to help our child perform well. Like, how much training do they need to do? What's the lesson, the private lesson they need? What's the equipment they need? What's all of that? And I would, for a bit of time, I would tell you to think about, what will your athlete, what will your child believe about him or herself when she fails? Because it's not an if, it's a when. And so if we assume they're going to fail at times, and that's their most vulnerable and probably fragile and hard moment, and that's where that inner dialogue is really going to take over, what do they believe about themselves in that moment? Because if in that moment they have a strong foundation, they know that they're unconditionally loved in that moment, they know that they're accepted, they know that their worth is still intact, if they know all of that, then when they win, we're going to be okay. Because I had to learn, if I'm not good enough without a medal, I'll never be good enough with one. So if I'm okay when I've failed, then I'm going to be okay in life. Like, the rest will take care of itself. And so I would just ask parents to reflect, like, what do I really believe my kid will know about themselves to be true when things don't go right? And how do I build that up and make sure that that's a solid answer?
Dang, that's good. Last question. Whew, that was good. I like to end every week on an encouragement. And so we know there are parents out here who are navigating this journey, having no clue what they're doing. They're just trying to love their kid as much as possible and support their goals. What would you tell that parent this week to encourage them as they lead their kids through this journey?
The first thing I would say, if you're listening right now, you've got a good heart behind it. And there is no perfect parenting. You are most likely doing the best you can. And so just keep at it. And in that, I think your kid doesn't need more pep talks. They need your presence. They need you to listen and create space. They get corrected all the time. They don't need another coach. They need your calm and your love and maybe an occasional ice cream cone and some fun. So I would say that's the first thing, is you're doing a great job, and also take some of the pressure off yourself and just be present, be loving, be encouraging, and be really specific when you give them compliments on who they are. Celebrate who they are and give context to it. We oftentimes say, hey, you're great. Hey, you did awesome. But why? Like, kids love some specificity around that. So when you're encouraging them, when you're loving on them, hey, I love how I saw you lift up your teammate and you just encouraged them. That was so impressive to me. I love when I saw you get out there. You were so brave because you tried that new thing. And I saw how it didn't go the way you wanted at first, but you kept trying. And I'm so impressed by that. And I don't know if I could even do that sometimes. So I'd say that first. And then the second thing I would say to encourage you is to say, if you've got some people in your life who you're doing life with, who are lifting you up, who are making it fun, find more of those people. In sports, we oftentimes get around a culture of people who are not always lifting us up and having fun. So that can be really hard when you feel like you're bouncing up against the sports culture and you feel like you're a little different. There are some other unicorns out there who are having fun, who are in it for the joy. Surround yourself with them. And if today you're having a hard time and you just need you need a little support, don't be afraid to go ask for that, because there are others out there who feel it. And when you're feeling that and you get the validation, you realize you're not alone. And when you have the courage to speak up and say, hey, I'm having a hard time in this sports thing, other people tend to feel like they have permission to speak up too.
Kate, this has been great. If people want to work with you or know more about what you're doing, where can they find it?
Yeah, you can check out my website, kateziegler.com, and I've got a bunch of free resources, information about coaching, everything is there. I'd love to connect with you.
Awesome. Kate, thanks so much for being here with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's it for today's episode. As a reminder, if you want to know more about Kate's coaching, those links are down in the show notes below. If you want your weekend playbook, head to healthysportsparents.com/playbook or click down in the show notes for the link. The merch store is open as well. The link is in the show notes. Every shirt, sticker, or hat you buy is one step closer to helping the Healthy Sports Parents book get published. If you like the show today, I'm going to invite you to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, it'd be a huge help for you to write up a small review. If you're on YouTube, make sure to hit that like button as well. If this episode has helped you in any way, the best way you can help us grow this platform is by sharing this episode with a friend. Most of all, above all else, enjoy your time with your kids this week, watching them play the sport they love. Have a great week, everybody. We'll talk again soon.